Welcome back to the 2-Minute Warning. Today I'm taking a look at the New York Football Giants and going over why I think they can win the division in 2021. But before we get into that topic, just a quick question for those of you viewing, especially the Giants fans out there. What do you think the Giants' record will be in the upcoming season? And of course, keep in mind there's going to be 17 games, but do you think they'll go above 500, below 500? Think they'll go to the playoffs? Whatever it is, comment down below. We're getting straight into it. I understand the Giants are not a perfect team, but luckily for them, they are in the biggest wild card division there is. It's the biggest question mark division. No one knows who's coming out of the NFC East. While to me, I don't want to say it's a three-man race because three-man race, I'm not narrowing it down by any means, but to me, you can cancel out the Eagles. I don't trust them. I don't like the head coach hiring of Nick Sirianni. I don't know what Jalen Hurts is. He was fun to watch last year, but the dude went 3-1. I don't exactly trust the receivers. Zach Ertz doesn't really want to be there. Jalen Reagor is Jalen Reagor. Devontae Smith, I like him, but he's a question mark as well. Eagles have a solid, well-rounded defense, but again, I just don't think they're in contention for a division, so I'm really going to be looking at how they can win the division between the Cowboys and Washington. And a lot of people think it's a two-man race. Washington and Cowboys. Washington has a better roster, but the Cowboys has Dak. Who's going to win that battle? But to me, Giants, they're a sneaky team that I think can hold their own against any team in this division and go toe-to-toe. Looking at it, I'm going to address Daniel Jones later, but to me, he's got some upside and he has the surrounding weapons to help him. Offensive line, that's another thing, but looking at the rest, I'll get into that later. I don't want to ignore it. A couple of things that are benefiting the Giants. A, when healthy, they have the best running back in the division. Yeah, Zeke was great his rookie year and his sophomore year, and he might be turning around with a healthy O-line and Dak, but still, I'm taking Saquon over Zeke, and I think a lot of people would. I like Antonio Gibson and his upside as a receiving back as well, but again, this is Saquon Barkley, an arguable top 5 running back in the league when healthy, so that's kind of a big benefit to the Giants, the number one backfield. Receiving core, I think Washington and Dallas has more star power in the receiving core. You know, Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup. Washington's got Scary Terry, Curtis Samuel. But to me, the Giants, when you consider the receiving room top to bottom, Giants have the best receiving core when it comes to an overall depth chart. To me, yes, Cowboys and Washington has more star power. Both Giants have so many good receivers, in my opinion, from head to toe. Kenny Golladay was obviously their huge, big free agent signing to be the number one guy on that team, but there's more behind them. Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton are a pretty scary duo. I'm not going to act like there's this lethal threat that's going to take over the NFL, but they're a pretty good duo to have on their team. They have a speedy John Ross who you can't rely on him, but if he's healthy, he could have a go route that could burn a couple corners because he's got that 4.21 speed. Kadarius Toney, I wasn't huge on the pick because, again, I don't think it was a huge necessity for the Giants. I'm not going to complain at this point. He's a human joystick. He's a playmaker, yards after catch, and that is going to benefit them. And in the tight end position, you could argue that they have the best tight end room in that division. I think Zach Ertz is going to leave the Eagles. Blake Jarwin on the Cowboys and Logan Thomas of Washington I think could be pretty good, but I think the Giants have Evan Ingram and Kyle Rudolph. They have the best receiving room and tight end room combined. Again, I like Dallas's star power and Amari Cooper, Washington's Scary Terry, but to me, in Fantasyland world, if you were to take away the number one receiver from each of those three teams, which receiving room is still gonna be all right? And to me, you take away Amari Cooper from the Cowboys, they're not half the receiving room they are. You take away Terry McLaurin from Washington, they're not half the receiving room they are. You take away Kenny Golladay from the Giants, I'm not gonna act like they're not hurt by it, but I just think they have a little more backup to help them out and a little more support if anything were to happen. And I know that's a really narrow lens and perspective to look at, but that's just a way I kind of consider on how good their depth chart is and how deep that receiving room is. So to me, they got the number one backfield and the number one overall receiving room top to bottom. Looking at the head coaching position, I like Ron Rivera as the best coach in that division. I got Nick Sirianni at last, but I think you can argue Joe Judge and Mike McCarthy are on the same level, at the same par. Again, if you're a Cowboys fan, you're going to say McCarthy's better. If you're a Giants fan, you're going to say Judge is better. But to me, being an unbiased fan, not being a fan of either team, I personally think Joe Judge is more well-rounded, and I would go with him, but I'm going to settle for a tie at second place, and having the second best coach in the division is a pretty good thing to have. Of course, you want first, but you're not dead last and unproven like Nick Sirianni, a guy that's playing rock, paper, scissors, shoot in his scouting reports. But furthermore, defense, I think the Giants have a safe number 2 defense lock in with number 1 defense upside in that division. Like I said, I think the Eagles are well-rounded, especially in the front line. But Cowboys front line as well, they have some big names, DeMarcus Lawrence, Jalen Smith, Micah Parsons. But their secondary scares me when it comes to the Giants. I think they're well-rounded top to bottom. You got Leonard Williams. He had a career-high season last year. I think he had 11.5 sacks off the top of my head, if I'm not mistaken. You drafted Azeez Ojulari. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, so excuse me on that. He's a risky pick, but he's got upside as well. You have Dexter Lawrence to help you out. You got Blake Martinez. You got Lorenzo Carter. That's a good front 7, in my opinion. In the secondary, you have a very good corner, yet kind of underrated corner in James Bradbury. He's a lockdown corner, yet his name isn't thrown out there enough. Adoree Jackson's very athletic. You got Jabril Peppers and Logan Ryan in the safety position. You drafted a rookie in the 3rd round and Aaron Robinson at the corner position. I don't know if he's going to start right away, but it's a guy to develop behind some good corners and learn from some good corners. So like I said, this is a very, very well-rounded defense that's coached by a very well-rounded coach in Joe Judge. Washington, how they compare against that defense, I do think Washington has the best defense in that division with their secondary having William Jackson, Kendall Fuller. They signed Bobby McCain. They got Landon Collins, a former Giant. Cameron Curl. I do think they have a better defense up front. They have arguably the best defensive line in the NFL between Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, Montez Sweat, Chase Young. They drafted a pretty good linebacker to help fill their hole in their defense. But a guy goes down, Giants could take the title as the best defense in the division. And I don't want to bank on, I'm relying on Washington to have an injured player so that the Giants could take the number 1 defense. I'm not banking on that. But I do think we're looking at defenses that are a lot closer than we think. And if one guy was to get hurt on Washington, that's just enough to give the Giants an edge. So overall, some things that are going for them that can lead to them winning the division is having the number 1 backfield. For all we know, Saquon Barkley could carry the Giants like Derrick Henry carries the Titans. So I think that'll happen? No. But I think that's a slight possibility. It's not impossible, and therefore that's some upside or some hope to maybe pray for. They have a great receiving room. They have a great defense, and they have a well-rounded coach. Those are all good things that comes to winning teams. Now getting to the hard part. Looking at the quarterback matchup, this sounds bold, but you could seriously argue Daniel Jones could be the 2nd best quarterback in the division. I know, a guy that started 14 games last year and had 11 touchdowns, that's not a guy I want on my team, but I think having a well-rounded roster, he could get better. Daniel Jones doesn't have to go out there and throw 40 touchdowns. He doesn't have to hit 4,500 yards. He doesn't have to carry this team. He just has to game manage this team. I know the turnovers are an issue, but in his first 2 seasons, he's thrown 12 interceptions in his first season and 10 interceptions in his second season. Those aren't pretty numbers, but it's not like this is Jameis Winston throwing 30 touchdowns, and 30 picks. The guy is maintaining the interceptions. The fumbles is a whole nother thing that combined with the interceptions, dear God. But I'm just saying, turning over the ball through the air, I feel like is getting a little overstated here. He's not like just throwing a pick every single play. And I know, 10 interceptions compared to 11 touchdowns, then it's like, Jesus, that is awful. But as far as actually how many interceptions he has thrown, it's not like he's on Jameis Winston status. I think if this guy, Daniel Jones, can go a season throwing just 30 touchdowns or 30 to 33 touchdowns and 10 to 12 interceptions, a 3-to-1 touchdown and interception ratio, that's a guy that can manage this team and allow some mistakes along the way. He doesn't have to carry them. They got Saquon to rely on. They have a receiving core that'll make plays after they catch the ball. They have a defense that'll, contend with any offense and at least limit them to an extent. And therefore, I think Daniel Jones has the upside of being the 2nd best quarterback. To me, Dak steals the title as the number 1 quarterback, and that's obviously why they are possibly the favorite to win the division. Washington, they're in a similar exact situation as the Giants. A great defense is going to limit any offense. Their receiving core could do a lot of work. Their backfield's very talented. But what is their quarterback going to do? Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's just as big of a wild card as Daniel Jones. How is he going to be at 38 years old? We don't know. Ryan Fitzpatrick can have games of 350 yards and 3 touchdowns, 0 picks, or 100 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 3 picks. That is a big wild card. That could go in the Giants' favor, and therefore I think having so many question marks, it is very possible for Daniel Jones to fight for 2nd place. And he's going to improve. He's got a better receiving core. He's got a better defense. He has a backfield to rely on. He has more reps. Like I said, in his rookie year, he started only 12 games and still put up 24 touchdowns. To me, if he starts 17 games, putting up 30 to 33 touchdowns is extremely possible and reasonable, and that is, I think, all the Giants need to win this division. Offensive line, they don't win that matchup in this division. Cowboys, when it's healthy, we know that's pretty good. Washington, it's pretty good. They drafted Samuel Cosme, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head in the second round, a pretty good tackle. They franchise tag Brandon Scherf. Their interior is solid. Washington and Cowboys steals the offensive line, and the Giants aren't relying on the greatest offensive line. You know, Nate Soldier isn't exactly the big name we thought. Andrew Thomas, not the greatest first-round offensive tackle taken in the 2020 draft that we thought, but this team could still work out the kinks. It's not the worst offensive line in the league. It's still viable. It could still get the job done. It's not what you want for a guy that has a turnover issue, but I don't think this offensive line will be the reason they wouldn't win this division. I think it could be a factor, but I don't think it is big enough to blame, and I think it's good enough to get the job done, especially in the NFC East. Because to me, overall, when you combine a great backfield, or when you combine the number one backfield in your division, the number one receiving room in your division, the number two defense in your division, the number two coach in your division, a number 2 to number 3 quarterback in your division, some of the things are going to add up to where maybe you're second place in the division and first place you're a game behind, and it comes down to the 17th game of the season, the final division rivalry between Giants and Washington, or Giants and Cowboys. I can't think of the schedule at the top of my head, but I think all these variables can put the Giants in a position to possibly in the final 2 to 3 weeks, when those division rivalries and divisional matchups are in the final position to determine the standings, the Giants could be a game or two away. And at that point, in a division rival, when you're neck and neck away, anything is possible, and that is why I think they can win the division. I'm not putting all my money in line. I'm not putting all my eggs in one basket, putting all my marbles on the floor and betting on the Giants to win this division. I'm not saying they will win the division, but you can't tell me it is not impossible with a second best defense in your division. I'm going over it again with the upside of number 1. Daniel Jones, as long as he could be a game manager and just throw 30 touchdowns, that's not impossible. He put up 24 in only 12 games in his rookie year. He can easily do 30 plus in a 17-game season. He's got to just manage the game and not turn over the ball. Saquon will do the work. The defense will create turnovers, create pressure, get you the ball back, create some turnovers themselves. I like this team. I like the coach. And the future or not, if Daniel Jones is the future or not of this team, Dave Gettleman, Trader Dave, GM of the Giants, is ready to move on off of him in the following year. So either way, Daniel Jones, there's a lot of pressure on his shoulders, but it's not like he's Sam Darnold on the Jets where they keep asking him to do everything, yet they give him nothing. Daniel Jones are asking him to do everything, but they also gave him everything, and therefore I think this Giants team can and possibly will be successful in the NFC East, and I think could go out there and win the division. As far as pure record-wise goes, I think anywhere from 8 to 11 wins is in the realm of possibility. 8 and 9 to 11 and 6. It really depends on Daniel Jones. If he's putting up 11 touchdowns through 14 games again, I think we could look at 4 or 5 wins, but I do think he's going to, at the bare minimum, hopefully throw for 25 touchdowns, hopefully limit the turnovers. Again, as far as how many total picks he's thrown, it's not that bad. Fumbles, picks combined, looking at the touchdown interception or touchdown of turnover ratio, it is not pretty, but I think turnovers he could cut back on. He could get rid of his Nathan Peterman tangibles and hopefully develop into just a game manager. I know that's not an ideal goal you want your franchise quarterback to be. You don't want him to hold the title of game manager, but this is a Giants team where all they need is a game manager and they could get the job done. I'm excited to see it. I think they, can win the division. I think they have a good shot at, sneaking up there. I think, like I said, a lot of people see Washington and Cowboys as a 2-man race, but Giants, I think, is neck and neck with those teams, and it's a 3-man race in my opinion. But as always, guys, let me know your opinions. Do you agree Giants could be a serious playoff threat or serious NFC East division winner threat, and what do you think the records will be? As always, and of course, truly appreciate it. Thanks for watching.